So a new trailer dropped on IGN which shows off a couple of dungeons in Final Fantasy XVI. This video is one in a series of videos that IGN has been releasing over the past week, but there are a couple things in this particular video that I thought were worth discussing. As usual, these elements are fairly spoilery, but if you've been watching my videos, then this one really won't expose much more than what we've already discussed and theorized in my previous videos. So maybe if you're trying to stay spoiler free, then avoid this video and probably most of the videos on my channel, but otherwise there's nothing really to worry about. So with that, let's get into it. The first section of this video takes place in the Drake's Breath dungeon. Drake's Breath is the mother crystal of Rosaria and the Iron Islands. They kind of share it, but not so much share it. So this dungeon, for those who don't know, will take place in the Iron Kingdom where the mother crystal resides. You'll notice all the enemies we are fighting here are crusaders of the Iron Kingdom. Now, this in and of itself isn't super interesting, but knowing the setting for this area gives us more context to this line that Jill says here.
Clive, there's something I need you to know. I saw the Patriarch do things no one should have to see. And so I swore that he would die by my hand.
I understand. I face my demons. Then you must face yours.
Now, in this line, Jill swears that she will kill someone known as the Patriarch. I think it's an easy guess that this character would be the guy that we saw in the Ambition trailer, seen here, but I think this is interesting for two reasons. One, it gives us some context to the Iron Kingdom, who up to this point has been rather enigmatic. It's probably the nation we've seen the least amount of at this point in time. This line tells us that their presumed leader, the Patriarch, was not afraid of using inhumane methods to achieve his goals. And as we probably could have guessed, he is clearly going to be a villain in this game. Now, the second part is the part that I think is more interesting. You see, with this line, we also get more insight into Jill's character. And in my previous videos, I discussed the idea that Jill could be an anchor to Clive, someone to keep him grounded as grief and anger overtake him. We know, obviously, that Clive is on a revenge arc from the beginning of the game, and I had theorized that Jill would be the yin to Clive's yang. Clive would be the angsty one, Jill would be the calm-tempered, level-headed one. However, this line completely changes that dynamic in my mind. Instead, it seems that Jill is more likely a parallel to Clive, and that Clive is actually supporting her as well as Jill supporting him. I also want to say that we obviously know, based on interviews and just like general good story writing, that Clive will most likely grow past this phase, as will Jill. But I find it interesting that at the beginning of their paths here early on in the game, Jill and Clive kind of have similar goals. Both of them are seeking revenge on someone. So my main takeaway here that I thought was interesting is that I was wrong in my previous assumptions, and I think Jill will actually play more of a role as a secondary protagonist, exploring different angles of the themes that we'll see with Clive. They seem to be going on very similar journeys, but I imagine they'll have slightly different destinations and different takeaways, because, you know, that would make it interesting. That's really it for this first part of the video. There wasn't a ton of really interesting stuff here. It was mostly combat focused. However, in the second dungeon, we actually got a cutscene as well as another little interesting short line that I'll play for you shortly. But let's set the stage first. The second dungeon takes place in the lead up to the Blue Mother Crystal and the Akashic Dragon fight that we've seen before and I've talked about extensively now. In my last video, I had wondered where exactly this crystal could be since we saw Cid destroying it, or at least attempting to destroy it, and at that time I said I could see it being the Empires or the Crystalline Dominions, and ultimately I came away thinking that it's most likely the Empires and that it would be the first one that we would destroy. So in this gameplay section from IGN, they actually kept in some story bits that give me the impression that I was right and that this is in the Empire, and so that would make it Drake's Head Mother Crystal. Listen to the dialogue in these two scenes.
You'd think they'd have patched that up by now. Sorry state the Empire's in.
Wait. You don't mean...
Aye. My little game of hide-and-seek with Bahamut ended here. At tragic cost to this remarkable architecture.
When I was in the Imperial Army, soldiers assigned to the Glass Gate would tell stories about something they called the Guardian.
Can't say I saw anything like that when I was last here. Then again, I can't say I made it this far.
Let's just be careful then.
So, as you just heard, Cid actually clashed with Bahamut at this Mother Crystal, and in this scene he directly refers to the Empire by name. Not just that, Clive also refers to his time enslaved by the Empire working at the Glass Gate and how they would talk about the Guardian of the Crystal. So with these two lines in my head, I think it's basically confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt that this crystal is actually the Empire's Mother Crystal, and comparing the levels of the two locations, this crystal is destroyed before Drake's Breath, which is what I thought, and probably makes it the first Mother Crystal that we destroy. So take that as you will. Another little tidbit I think is interesting interesting is that obviously Sid has apparently visited this Mother Crystal before, and obviously he wasn't invited because he fought Bahamut here, and by extension Dion. So that makes me wonder why he came here the first time at all. I've been wondering how Clive and Jill learn about how the Mother Crystals are basically leeches on the world and draining the world of its ether. I've bounced around some theories before, one of which was it might make sense that Sid already knew and explains it to us. Now, I think in my previous video, we heard Jill say that the Mother Crystals take more than they give. I thought that maybe Jill learned about in the Iron Kingdom since they are against dominance, so maybe that's part of their beliefs. But with this line now, I'm now bouncing back to the idea, well, maybe Sid knew something beforehand. Or maybe he just came here to try to find something out. Another tiny thing that I do find a little interesting is that Clive refers to a location known as the Glass Gate. Obviously this is in the Empire, but I do wonder if it's in the capital or maybe some other location. My gut is telling me that this might be a gate at the entrance to this Mother Crystal, because it would make sense if the gate itself was made out of the crystal that we see in Drake's head, because that crystal is kind of clear and looks a little bit like glass. So it makes sense that that crystalline gate would be called the Glass Gate. Also, if you look at the location name that pops up here in the video, we see that this temple-like pathway is referred to as the Path of the Goddess. And so this is obviously referring to the goddess of the Empire, which they all worship. And so this gives us an obvious link between Drake's head, the Mother Crystal, and the goddess, who I think will be important later on in the game. Especially since we know that this kid exists that's sitting on the throne here, and that kid is in my opinion, most likely the goddess. The Empire of Sambrique is actually a theocracy, if you didn't know. They worship this person as like a living embodiment of their goddess, and really they're kind of ruled by this emperor dude, but that's kind of beside the point. So anyway, all that's to say, there's a cool link here between the goddess and the crystal, and in my opinion, that's going to be important later on in the game. Another little lore thing that I found interesting is that not just the dragon, but every being in this cave is referred to as Akashic. We have the Akashic champion here, or this Akashic legionnaire, and now I didn't think much of it when it was just the dragon, but after Googling the meaning of Akashic, it probably links back to the concept of Akasha, which in Indian cosmology directly translates to their concept of ether. Obviously, we know that this is an inspiration since the energy of this world is referred to as ether. So really, these Akashic enemies could also really be called etheric enemies, or rather that they're actually beings completely made of ether. This is most prominently shown here. We see the Akashic champion's body just kind of disperse into ether, but his giant mace drops on the ground and stays in place. Now, I have to ask the question, why is it that the Empire is using these etheric soldiers to watch over the Mother Crystal? Is it just that if you spend enough time in this temple, your body absorbs so much ether that you kind of naturally transform? Are the Empire somehow summoning and binding these soldiers to their will? I'm leaning a little bit towards the former, and the idea that they probably use the branded slaves as fodder, which, remember, Clive was one of their branded slave soldiers. That's something I'm a little interested in figuring out once we get to play the game. The final interesting thing is that Jill and Clive have obviously seen these wraiths before. Now, I do have to wonder where exactly they would have run into these wraiths. I could see it being at any point where Clive and Jill are together, so likely sometime in the present, not the past. Maybe it's when they fight each other after the prologue. Maybe it's right before they come to this Mother Crystal and after we fight Benedicta. The fact, though, is that there's unique dialogue for this encounter, which makes me think that these wraiths will somehow be relevant to the overall narrative. And given their location, I think they'll likely be related to the Mother Crystals too. Now, I don't think they're going to pull a Final Fantasy VII remake here, where these wraiths are like trying to change the narrative or something, but I think it's something to keep your eye on in your own playthroughs, and it's something I'll be watching in mine. There's a decent chance that this will be part of some larger antagonist, I would guess. That's it for this video. It's a bit shorter than my usual ones, but we've been through a bit of a drought again. That is until tonight, where they do their pre-launch celebration, which brings me into the second point of this video. If you made it this far in the video, you might be interested in watching me play the demo and hear my thoughts. I have work tomorrow morning, but I'm planning on playing the demo tomorrow, Monday, at 7 EST, and I'll try to stream it right here on this channel. We'll see if things work out, since it'll be my first stream on YouTube. I do have a Twitch channel, but I'd really rather keep it on YouTube just so it's easier for everyone who follows me. If I do end up using Twitch as the backup, I'll make a post about it here on YouTube. So if you're subscribed, you'll probably get a notification somewhere, and you can follow that if you're interested in watching. Also, I made a Twitter recently, so if you use Twitter, you can find me. I have the link down in my description. You can go ahead and follow me, and I'll definitely tweet when I go live. I'm debating if I want to stream my first playthrough of the game, since I don't see myself as a very very good reaction streamer. I think I'm better with scripted content, probably. And with the hours I'm planning on playing, I think most people would fall off since I took time off work and I'm just gonna like no life it for 4 days. So this stream will be a bit of a test to gauge interest, and I'll kind of take things from there. I have my own kind of thoughts on it. Right now I'm leaning towards not streaming just so I have like a fresh perspective, but I'll record everything and post reactions and post thoughts and make videos about probably the interesting parts of the story and have a larger discussion about those parts. But if the stream goes particularly well and I have a decent amount of viewers who all like watching me, I might just stick with it and try streaming at least a little bit, at the risk of getting potentially spoiled. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen. So with all the announcements done, go ahead and leave a like if you like this little discussion. Any comments about the gameplay that I went over earlier in the video or my streams do interest me, so go ahead and leave a comment about what you're thinking. And finally, if you aren't already, go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more. We are getting very close to launch, so it's getting very exciting. So let's keep up the hype these last 10 days or so before we finally get to wake up and play Final Fantasy 16. Until next time, this has been Thalwig, and I hope you stay happy and healthy until we get to play this game, because then you'll definitely be happy and hopefully still healthy. But thanks. Bye.